So the daycare provider gives me a call at work, and this was a family relative who had their own licensed daycare and who had a responsibility of taking care of two of my children. My oldest daughter at that time was about 3 or 4 years old. I know this started happened before she was even able to start school, and I got that call at work that my daughter had been hit by a car. Now, according to the story, my daycare provider had gone to go pick up her child from school, had gotten distracted, had one of my children, when they were young, in the stroller, and then the other child was walking alongside of her, and she got distracted and left her behind. And before you know it, she said she had been across the street, she heard the streak of the tires, and she heard the scream of other people, and turned around, and my daughter was in the ground. Now, I tried to keep it together, right? I tried to keep it together. I'm at work. I'm in an office building. This call came from out of nowhere. I worked in a cubicle at that moment. And many of you all know if you work in a cubicle, you have no privacy. So they started to hear me. My coworkers started to hear me react to the news that I was getting. And I'm going to tell you, I held it together until I asked that one question, because I'm asking her what happened. My daughter, how is she? What's going on? And then I realized she hadn't said to me whether my daughter was in a hospital, which hospital, and she hadn't told me whether I should be calling a hospital or if I should be calling the morgue. Suddenly, I asked her those questions and she couldn't give me an answer. And I remember losing it at work. I lost it. Your day can start off so easy and you think you have things planned out, and then you get that phone call and you just realize, I'm still emotional about it, even to this day, that you may have lost someone that you anticipated seeing for quite some time in your life, and more importantly, who you were absolutely in love with. Fortunately, we were able to locate where my daughter was. I was able to talk to her first before I actually saw her, because I think I called like a dozen hospitals in the area. Once they told me where she was, and once I found her and identified what she had on during that day, and she heard my voice, she wasn't really communicating because she was frightened and in shock and she was being worked on. But when she heard my voice and I heard her say, "Mommy," I fell apart. So I get to the hospital and she's banged up and bruised. Fortunately, she hadn't broken anything, but she definitely needed some care. And my heart melted. I fell apart again. So why am I telling this story? Well, my daughter needed, obviously, my care. Now, as a parent, as a mom who loves her children, I am going to give her care, right? Because parents are caregivers. I keep saying that. But I've also gotten that call or been notified of impending emergencies with other people in my family who also needed care. And as I've said time and time again, sometimes we aren't prepared for those phone calls. Sometimes we are not prepared when you're sitting talking to a doctor and the doctor tells you that your loved one needs surgery. What are you going to do? How do you plan things out in order to continue to work full time for many of us and provide those care services that they so desperately need? Number one, don't think you're alone in this process. Start by having those conversations that are tough for many of us to have, right? What do you want done medically? How are you going to meet with those doctors and get your questions answered? How are you going to care for the needs after the person gets home? What's going to be required after the person gets home? Are they even allowed to come home? Those are the things that we need to be discussing. And then if you're the sole person who's going to be responsible for the care of that recipient, how are you going to handle it without burning yourself out? That's why my husband and I started Hanson Caregiving Consulting Services, because we both are caregivers and we understand what it's like in order to be put in that situation and have to realize that we need our support systems in place. But we also realize we're not the only people doing it and going through this experience. It's truly loving others that makes us share this experience with you and makes us want to render this support. So, once again, you do not have to do this alone. Go to www.Hanson Caregiving Consulting Services and get the support that you need, because you're human and you need care just like you give care. Until next time, this is your girl Essie. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share. If you have a story that's similar to that, Drop it in the comments and let us know what you've been through as a caregiver. Until next time, I'm out.